It's not often that a company starts to rework their entire product stack based on making a budget version of their product, but that's exactly what Earthworks have done with the SR117, or as I'd like to call the Sierra 117, because it's clearly named after the Master Chief. This is Earthworks in all of their humble glory. You know, they make live production microphones, stage mics, drum mics. I've showed off their podcasting kind of voiceover mics before. They're not cheap microphones, although prices have come down. They're not cheap. But this is their humble attempt at a budget microphone, being the $200 price point. I realize that's not budget for everyone, but in the grand scheme of microphones, $200 is pretty cheap for high-quality voiceover mics. This is their attempt at making a cheap stage microphone. That is, falls within the cheap category, but punches way above its class. Can I just say how stoked I am to be reviewing microphones again, y'all? Things are finally coming back. I don't typically cover stage microphones, but when I got this a couple months ago for review, and then a bunch of stuff came up and I wasn't able to review it right away, I did switch to it, and I've been using it full time in all of my videos, and the audio quality has been stellar. This isn't great sounding audio for a $200 microphone. This is great sounding audio just in general. This is some of the best I've sounded in my videos ever, and it's taught me a lot about what I actually want from a microphone when I'm doing voiceover and recording desktop tutorials and things like that. There's 3 areas the SR117 absolutely excels. The first is handling noise. I'm looking at the meters right now, and you're probably hearing a little something, but it's not much. There is so little handling noise with this microphone. I am beyond impressed, especially given that it is a condenser microphone. The second way it excels is in the natural sound. It probably sounds a little bit more flat here than in my videos. On my desk setup, I typically route it through a warm, a WA12 Mark II mic pre, which adds a little bit of that analog warmth to it, and then I do, of course, compress and EQ things as I go. But it plays so well to coloration from EQs or better mic pre's or whatever, because of how flat and natural it sounds. And if you look at the frequency response graph, while it does sort of slope off towards the lower end frequencies, which is kind of what you want anyway, the overall graph is pretty flat, with just the tiniest bit of kind of presence boost towards the high end before it rolls off the highs. It sounds so natural, more so than most other microphones that, I play with. It's supposed to have a lot better plosive rejection, pepperoni plosive pizza, due to being a stage mic, and it also just rejects background noise significantly well. See, the thing is, most stage mics, not all of them on the market, but most of them that I have played with that people bring up for desktop use, for streaming, for recording videos and things like that, they're dynamic microphones. Now, the difference between condenser and dynamic, I've covered this a million times, but condensers are powered by 48 volts of phantom power, and that current running through the microphone effectively makes them sensitive to sound, which means in some cases, they're going to be more likely to pick up background sound. In dynamic microphones, they're activated by the pressure of your vocal frequencies pushing on the microphone to kind of activate the coil, and that results in some reduced background sound depending on your environment, but it also means a lot of influence on the way that you sound. So a lot of the microphones that look like this, including, things like the Samson Q2U, which is a lot cheaper, but hey, they have that more kind of compressed, punchy radio sound that a lot of people don't like. It sounds like you're speaking into a bottle or something. This is a condenser mic. It has none of the gain requirements of a dynamic mic, although it can take tons of gain if you need to without distorting. It just picks me up naturally. And yet I have a pretty loud server running in the floor next to me that I'm in the middle of troubleshooting. I've got a test bench running behind me, and I've got my noisy desktop right here. And I rarely, even with my AC on full blast, rarely hear background sound in my recordings. In fact, the last 2 videos I've recorded at my desk with it, aside from the audio hiccups from my Windows issues that we'll be talking about soon, have been with the AC on, and you don't really know it. Earthworks does amazing work with regard to the transients of your audio being picked up, which are just like that initial hit. Audio has this kind of delay because, it's a physical force moving through the air that when you make a sound, it takes a little bit for it to hit, and then it takes even longer for it to be picked up and registered properly by a piece of recording equipment because of all the physics at play with microphone audio. You have to, It has to reach the microphone, and then the microphone has to be sensitive to it, and it has to reach a point at which the microphone is sensitive to it. Earthworks microphones tend to be more sensitive to those initial hits of the sound, which make them stellar for kind of, natural stage mics as well as their drum mics. It's a huge deal there. It does mean, if you look at the specs, the self-noise floor tends to be a little bit higher, but I can say in application, when you're actually using it, you don't notice it at all. We're looking at a super cardioid mic, frequency response 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. I'm not going to read off the rest. You can take a look at them, but I don't really know what to say here other than this is an amazing mic. Truly. I can't test it on a stage. I'm not a singer. I won't melt your ears with that. But I found myself putting this on my desk and being impressed, not only because of the price point, and for some streamers and content creators, $200 is a lot of money for a microphone. And I get that. My first big microphone investment was a $200 microphone, after my blue snowballs and whatever. And that was the Rode Procaster. I still have that microphone. It's a dynamic microphone, and it definitely colors your voice as a result. But I thought for the longest time that you need dynamic mics to reject background noise. And in a lot of scenarios, it certainly helps. But I left it on my desk because I fell in love with the way it sounds. And knowing that the Earthworks team is effectively taking what they learned from making a cheaper, smaller microphone and using it to improve the rest of their stack just makes me so happy. Because the issue that I have had with every microphone company that I have reviewed mics for is that whenever they come out with the budget version, the $200, $250 or cheaper version of their microphone, be it for stage purposes or for podcasting or content creation or streaming, they don't make a new design that's good. They just go the cheapest possible route and hope that their brand name carries them. To the extent that I remember on a phone call I had with Earthworks when I was saying I was nervous to even touch something like this, I truly feel that whoever designed all the big microphones for the major companies, which some of them are going on 100 years old, like the RE20, Electro Voice still makes good stuff. They haven't come out with anything that I've hated. That's not the point. I have felt that whoever makes their cheaper microphones just doesn't have the same design skills or the same design mindsets when they're trying to make it, because they're not trying to make something good. They're just trying to make something cheap. And they seem to think that this content creator, streamer, podcaster audience doesn't want the same level of good audio, to the extent that I tend to not recommend most budget mics these days and just say to pick up a good one used, because you're going to get far better results. This is a $200 microphone that I can recommend picking up brand new and sticking with for your entire career if you don't mind the way it looks. Earthworks mics are typically very in your face with the visuals in a way that I really love. They look super retro futuristic, space agey. The Ethos and the Icon Pro, and then their, their big stage one that like Violet Orlando uses and stuff. They have very stark designs so that when you're using them, it's an Earthworks mic. But for their stage mic, they went completely minimal to the extent that their logo isn't even on the outside. It's only on the inside when you start taking it apart, because they just want the microphone to speak for itself. And I think it does. I think this microphone speaks for itself. It is incredibly good. This is going to sound a little different, like I said, than the mic pre that I have on my desk typically for these setups. I will have post-processed some of the clips labeled on screen as usual for this video, just so you can see how I typically color it. But this is amazing. I'm going to cut to a couple comparisons here now. I don't have the same kind of repertoire of microphones that I used to, but check the playlist in the description for all my other mic reviews and my mic sample vault and things like that, if you want to hear how it sounds versus like an SM7B or whatever fits your fancy. I do the same reads in mostly the same environment for that reason. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die. One for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. Just as a quick demo, here's how it usually sound in the way that I set it up for my videos, running through the WA12 Mark II mic pre with the EQing that I apply, with my AC going on in the background. I at least think it sounds pretty good. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. Talking while typing on box royal switches, talking while typing, talking while clicking, click, 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 click. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your patience as videos have been slow. Go check out my OBS course if you want everything you need to possibly know about OBS. Everyone has been, I have not heard a single complaint other than a couple glitches I had with videos that had to be fixed. I've not heard a single complaint about the content of the course. You all have been incredibly supportive of it. If you've missed it, eposvox.gg/course launch. It is 19 hours of content and more is on the way. Remember to be kind. Rewind.